Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I am one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, here with my favorite foot ventriloquist.
Foot ventriloquist.
I'm making up a title that doesn't exist. But if you're not watching on YouTube, I just want you to know that Andy's solution to the soundboard or whatever this thing is that is too far out of reach was to put his nasty feet on it.
These are clean socks.
Oh.
I'm just putting my best foot forward. Dad joke.
Yeah. Actually, that was pretty impressive that you did the volume, the intro music, all of it.
I've been practicing. I don't know.
Literally, you've just been sitting here and practicing with your feet.
No.
You weirdo. Oh, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I had a funny, interesting interaction with somebody this week that I wanted to talk about this morning. So, I was traveling, as I often do. I was meeting with some pastors, and it was a cool room because there's some people I'd never met before, some people I knew really well, and then people that like that kind of acquaintance thing where like, I think we've been in the same space together before. And a lot of them remembered me from like 20 years ago, like first job, mid-ad-hoc. And then this one pastor comes over and he's like completely sincere, but like, and I know this look on his face because I've had the same experience from the other side where you're like trying to place somebody, but you're not 100% sure like what the context is. Yeah. And so I say, oh, I'm Andy Needham. And he's like, Andy Needham. He's like, is the musician your dad? I was like, no, that's me.
The Andy Needham band has been retired so long that he had some image of like...
We're all in nursing homes.
A much older man.
That's right.
Well, it's also a good sign that you've aged well.
Yeah.
Which I would agree. I think
this is 25 years of ministry this year for me this fall, which is wild.
You barely look 25 years old.
I started when I was 18, so that helps. But
yeah. You still barely look 25 years old, so.
Didn't you have a weird reaction? You did have a weird reaction, but you also have a weird interaction this week.
Oh, yeah. So I've been doing these Pilates classes.
Pilates.
Can
you please explain for the listeners?
No. You were trying to get me to explain Pilates to you before, and I don't know how to describe it to people. It's
expensive.
It's expensive. It is.
It's bougie.
It is very bougie.
It is bizarre.
I don't know about that, but here's what I will say. I'm trying it for a little bit, and my hope behind it was that it would help me with my flexibility and my core strength for powerlifting. So this is like powerlifting is going to be my thing, but I wanted something to help in that department, and it has. It's helped a ton. However, I don't necessarily when I plop in these classes in the morning, it's kind of one of these things is not like the other. I don't necessarily fit in from like a visual perspective. However,
what do you mean by that? From a visual perspective? Can you explain this to me?
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you brought it up because I probably need to increase my allowance because if you do Pilates, apparently you need like matching Lululemon sets.
I don't think you need more allowance. It's just how you allocate such allowance.
I haven't bought anything at Lululemon, but I feel like it's not going to be a little bit of money.
Our daughter loves the Lulu.
Yeah. So needless to say, I don't have like the cute matchy sets, and I'm not as put together. And I'm actually okay with that because the women in the class I'm inspired by how good they are at Pilates.
This is your like way to put a Christian cover on judging people?
Oh, no, I'm actually judging them as in like, I wish that I looked that good in my workout clothes. Shut up. I have really enjoyed it's not like you always talk about Orange Theory and all your gym buddies and they talk to you and you all have like this bond.
That's after doing it for like 1,000 classes. You were like 10 classes in.
Fair enough. So nobody's really talked to me yet, and that's fine. This week, finally, one of the older women in the class, which the class is basically older women, it's made for me. But this woman approached me and I got so excited. I was like, this is it. I'm going to be in the in crowd. And she's like, I have just a really random kind of weird question for you. And I was like, okay. she's like, "Are you a police officer?" And I'm thinking like, maybe is it like, do I look mean? I don't know. And she was like, I was like, no, why? She's like, you just look so strong.
You're a strong young woman.
You look like you're going to beat somebody up. So I will take the compliment that I look strong. I do feel like that affirms what you just said, that maybe I don't mean to, but maybe I look intimidating in these Pilates class. I'm just focusing because I'm not good at it. So I probably make really angry faces.
Well, do you remember when you were doing some work for somebody that we knew, you were helping them flip houses? This is like 15 years ago. And you used to interact with the contractors, and you used to say like, you were great because they would like see like, oh, there's a woman running this job, and they'd kind of be like, oh, I'm going to be able to get my way around this. But then you were ruthless and like would always get the best deal. And you used to say that you were a poodle with wolf's fangs.
Yeah.
I think
Something like that. A poodle with wolf
I
fangs.
think that what you're experiencing in the fitness world is you're a bulldog with a smile. It's like the opposite situation.
I'm gonna have to think about whether I like that. I don't know if that's a vibe I'm trying to give off, but if that's, maybe I need to start wearing, I'm wearing pink today. Maybe I need to start wearing less black and more pink. I don't know.
Maybe you shouldn't have the Concord Police t-shirt on. I'm just
It's not even true. Listen, I need listeners to send me their best tips on how to look less intimidating so I can make friends in my Pilates studio. That doesn't involve purchasing Lululemon matching sets because I'm not that committed.
I feel like that'll make you more intimidating, but that's all right.
Yeah, no, I want to be less intimidating. So tips and tricks.
How's the last week been for you?
It was a rough one. Won't lie. I had a situation where nobody likes going to the doctor, but in particular, I tend to procrastinate going to the doctor, even if there's something going on that probably, you go on to, what's that? Not Google.
Cancer.com.
Yeah. Literally, I have cancer.com. WebMD. That's it. No, I have cancer.com. And, all of those, you're looking things up and it's all like
canker sore may cause death.
Yeah. But even if I see like need to be seen, like should, see a physician, I'm like, it can't be that bad. So it was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I think you said, okay, for real, like you need to make a doctor's appointment. And so I went online. I love the like online doctor stuff, by the way.
I've heard somebody say that our generation as elder millennials, we've gone from MySpace to MyChart.
Yeah. That's exactly what I went on.
Yeah.
I went on MyChart and I was like, oh my goodness, you can literally like schedule an appointment right
It's amazing.
on MyChart. So I did that thinking I was being so responsible and I put in all the information. And then it's not a good sign when they call you.
Yeah, right away.
Yeah. So I got a call back and they're like, so basically, according to the symptoms, they're like, you probably should go to the emergency room. But we do have an appointment at such and such. It was like that same day. And so I was like, well, I definitely don't want to go to the emergency room.
So one of the worst places on earth.
The only thing I hate worse than the doctor is sitting in an emergency room.
God bless any of you who work in an ER because I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
It's not your fault, but it's crazy.
Well, and I always think if I'm not sick going in, I'm catching something while I'm waiting. Mm-hmm. So I end up going to the appointment and the appointment was great. Doctor was great. Unfortunately, it wasn't that I found out it's for sure something bad, but I found out that it needs more tests to determine what's going on. And so I have some tests coming up. We'll go with that. Uncomfortable
Invasive
testing.
middle-aged tests.
Invasive testing.
Not that the test is going to be great and pleasant, but they also like the diet that they told you had to be on was like, you can have like cold water and ice.
Yeah. No happiness. Honestly, I don't want to go on a tangent on this, but this was a big thing. They gave me this whole printout of like basically from now until your operation, we need you to do all of these things. And I'm reading that to you and you're like, are you kidding me? Like what? And it was kind of terrible. And I was trying to follow, like, I was trying to be obedient and do what they said,
I love that you used the word obedient.
obedient to what they were asking. But when I started what they were asking me to do, I started feeling worse. Like, I immediately was feeling awful.
Well, and you've been like on a kick. I mean, obviously you mentioned the gym and health, like you're setting the pace here. And then even in terms of like your eating, you've been dialing that in. You've been doing the hormone research and like being with a holistic doctor. Like you've been doing the work. So it kind of, I mean, that was part of what was kind of hard, I think, for you. You tell me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
No, you're right. And I said that I'm like, I have been feeling so good that it kind of caught me off guard to all of a sudden, like I did not feel good at all. And I had this moment where we get hate mail or doctors like, you're not a doctor, you can't decide. But here's what I decided. I realized that honestly, part of how
The protocol was not necessarily written for you.
the protocol had a different avatar in mind. We'll go with that. And you're building something,
Yeah.
you have an avatar and you're like, we're all these details about the avatar. Like, I think this was built for someone who isn't generally eating healthy. They have all these other things that just aren't true for me. And so they're trying to basically like fast get all the inflammation out of their body, all of these things that I don't have those things going on right now. And so I made an executive decision that I'm not about that life. And I'm going to go through with the testing, but I'm going to continue my healthy, like what I've been doing because I feel good doing it. And so, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. You've been a champ. You've been very gracious.
I don't feel like I've done anything, but that's fine. I've been in it with you, I guess, listening. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, on top of that, and we won't go into a lot of detail here, but we both have had some things where our parents have faced some significant, I mean, I think on the same day, both our parents were in the ER, our moms,
Yeah.
and that's been hard.
I had one day in particular where I was at work and it was pretty crazy at work. So I was managing that and my phone was just blowing up and I was losing track of who the hospital messages were. Was this about me, my mom, your mom? Like what? And it was like I had a moment I like had to sit and just let tears release because it felt like a lot. And it wasn't anything, there wasn't anything I can do. It just,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot this week.
I think sometimes we have this idea, even in our own lives, of like we have that good day, bad day philosophy, or like good week, bad week, good month, bad month. And there certainly are times that that's true, but I think a lot of life is sort of such a mix of those things. There's real hard things, and then there's other things that are going really great. And so today in our conversation, we want to talk about, I guess with that as the context, like what do you do when you're weary? It could be news, it could be something you're walking through. If you're experiencing exhaustion, I think all the parents of young children are like, yes, that's my reality. Like, how do you navigate that, especially in the context of your marriage?
Yeah. And this is the reality if in marriage that no matter what, it doesn't matter who's listening, marriage or life. I don't even think it's necessarily specific to marriage, but in marriage, it's that dynamic between how it's going to impact your relationship together when you have these other things. So yeah.
And you're in everything together to a degree, but then you're experiencing different, like, I don't have to go through the test that you're going through, like that, but I do have to, or I get to even to be there for you. So yeah, so let's talk about some things that we've kind of thought about. A lot of this is wisdom that we've gained from mentors, from wise counselors, from books, from different things, experiences, just life suffering. And they're things that we probably need this reminder right now as much as anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Number one, name it to tame it.
This is not name it and claim it. It's very different.
Not a name it and claim it, though I do make that joke frequently.
Yeah. I think that I'm sure that it's not original to this person, but I first heard this through my friend Dave Ripper, and his wife, Erin, is a counselor. It's this idea that in order for us to be able to face a problem, we have to be able to describe the problem.
Yeah. And just being able to talk about the things that are hard. What are the things that are challenging us? And because my wiring, honestly, is I want to spin everything. I'm very like, just give me the silver lining. I don't want to sit in the yuck of it. And there's a danger to that. And I've experienced that where I'm just stuffing things down and not acknowledging them, and they're having a worse impact rather than just calling it what it is.
So like, let's take the situation that you're facing right now with some medical tests. How would you name what you're experiencing? Like, what language would you use to describe that?
Yeah. So partly for me is just being honest moment to moment, because I don't, feelings do, they kind of, they fluctuate, they change. And so I would say, are we asking in this moment or like
I don't know. You
when?
can call it that however you choose.
Yeah. So I've had some time to sort of process this a little bit. And I think for me, naming the fact that I am honestly mostly frustrated by it, because it feels like something that is hindering me from doing some things that I want to do. And, I had hopes of competing in my first powerlifting competition this month, and this is going to push that out.
Yeah.
Like I can't have this and do that. And so I've had some frustration. I've had not a lot of fear yet. I don't think, for me, honestly, I haven't gone down this road of what ifs yet. Again, who knows? Being able to name that it's been frustrating for me, that I feel a little bit like it knocked the wind out of my sails. I feel like I've been on this really good rhythm and
It broke your
patterns.
rhythm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And
It's like a loss of momentum, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And even just for me, it's being okay that this is where I'm at. And I keep saying the long game to myself, reminding myself that, yeah, I need to do what I need to do. And it is going to slow down some things, but I'm not in this for the short game. Like this is just a bump in the road. And I want to be faithful to the things that God puts in front of me. I read this quote, and I'm reading the book Steps right now. And there was this.
It's by John Ortberg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. And one of the things that I was reminded in my reading this week is that we often go to God and we are asking him to change our circumstances. When we don't like the circumstance, God, like, please take this, remove this. And how often God wants to use our circumstances to change us. And I was just reminded that all of this, as cheesy as it sounds, this is a growth opportunity for me in patience and, taking baby steps, and also just staying in the moment of, I can only do what I can do today. And that's okay.
Yeah. For me, as the one not walking through it, but try to walk through it with you. Like, it was important for me. This is why community is so important. Like, just to a couple close friends, just like, hey, this is something we're walking through. And it's been interesting because I have great friends. So they're like, how are you really doing? They're kind of pressing how you're feeling. And I feel like for me, it was just like knowing that I wasn't alone in that, like just having some other people that are like, and so that if something were to get more serious or take a turn, it wouldn't be like I'd have to catch people up from the beginning of the conversation. I do think that's where community is important, to be honest. And at the same time, like, I don't need to, we were meeting with friends last night, and Dan was asking me like, how are you doing with all this stuff? And I said, right now I'm doing fine. It could change, like that might change, but it's comforting to know that you have somebody that you can talk to about that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I have a friend at work, and we've actually been laughing about this week, because she was one that actually, she was in the room when one of these calls came in. So I had shared what was going on, because she wondered why I had tears obviously coming down my face. And so our joke is, the not asking how I'm feeling is actually a gift to me. Like we had a super funny interaction where we were in the office, and I had gotten this news, and she was in there, and I was trying to like articulate how I was feeling. Like I almost felt like I was supposed to. And she just looked at me and she was like, I didn't ask. And then we both just started laughing, because the idea, I mean, obviously it sounds terrible, but she was like, sometimes when there's just so much going on, she's like, you don't, like, trying to put words to it is actually more frustrating. Like it's a lot. That's all I can say. And so that's actually been a gift to me this week, is we have actually had some really good tears and laughter over, I'm not going to ask you how you're feeling right now, because this is a lot to process. So
yeah. So I think finding to find language and communicate what you are feeling is an important thing.
Yeah.
And you actually shared, as we were prepping for this episode, another quote from the John Ortberg book Steps about, and this is just a great thought, like that we are supposed to own our emotions, but that's different than enthroning our emotions. Mm-hmm. Emotions are powerful and they're a gift from God. They're part of God's design for us, but it's when we give them authority, or if we kind of put them in the place of on the steering wheel of our lives, then we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. And the flip side, and I think this is where I can be guilty, is I skip the owning. It's almost like a fear. I don't want to enthrone it, but there is that step.
Feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. It's okay to feel it. And I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to be okay when I cry and not feel, though I'm not very good at this. I tend to apologize for crying, and I'm like, why am I apologizing? I'm just feeling my feelings.
That's the years in Canada for you. The polite Canadian, Bethany.
The polite.
Apologize.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I'm crying.
We love Canadians.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So that kind of ties into our next thing, is like, how does that impact, like there's the cause and then there's the response to it. And we'd love to think that our response is always going to be just like Jesus.
Yeah.
However, it is not. At least for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, yes, amen.
I meant yeah as in me too. That wasn't me like, yeah, you're a jerk.
When we are in the heat of it and we're feeling the discomfort of weariness, of exhaustion, of the unknown, how can that show up in unhealthy ways in our relationship?
I think personally, I can really struggle with detaching emotionally. Like, again, it's that if I can't even handle my own emotions, I don't want, it's almost like a pushing away from intimacy instead of pressing into it. And that can obviously have a major impact in marriage, is I'm going through this thing, and rather than opening up to you, and sometimes that for me is guilt. I like, to be honest, all of this health stuff, I have wrestled with the guilt of how this impacts you. Like, I got this, because it does. It like when you're going through physical challenges, and I feel guilty. And rather than just, again, this is naming the guilt and being honest with you, I push away and I start getting guarded and I put up walls, and that's not helpful.
I think that it was something that ties into that emotional distancing is like the challenge is that we're going to experience these things that we go through. Again, it could just be having an incredibly hard week at work and dealing with a boss that's breathing down your neck, or whatever it could be. So it could be an external factor that, in marriage we get to share in these things, but we experience them differently. Like if you're the employee that's having that experience, and your spouse can empathize with you, but they can't necessarily understand it, and they don't have to go show up for work on Monday. So sharing in each other's discomfort is not going to be like being on the equal footing. And I think that sometimes we can either use that as an excuse to not enter into that mess, or we can almost put a pressure on the other person to be like, no, I'm miserable and you're coming in the water with me.
Yeah. I'm miserable. We're all miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think one of the things I've noticed too, and this probably is more on the exhaustion side, if I'm in a season where I feel like a lot is being taken from me, not in like but just I'm pouring out, then the temptation in marriage is, or rather how that can impact our marriage, is you are asking very little of me, and I go into this very guarded, protective, like, how dare you? I have been working so hard. Everybody just is taking from me. It's almost like resentment gets aimed at you as though you're the one that's been draining me all week, kind of thing. Yeah. And that obviously a huge impact in marriage. And I can see that in myself sometimes, where I just get this almost like I go into victim mode, where now, and that's to me, a dash light of, okay, this is not a healthy, like, you have not taken care of yourself the way that you need to. You have not put up boundaries the way that you needed to, or left margin the way that you needed to. And that's how this is now impacting marriage.
Just to enter into that, because I've done the same thing, I'm curious what you would think about when that's true, when you're at the point where you're like, I don't have one more act of service to give. I don't have one more extra mile to walk in this, which is, what we're called to do in marriage. But there's times where it's just like, I just don't have it in me right now. what's a good response? Because I mean, one good response sometimes is suck it up, buttercup. Like there are times when it's just like, okay, I'm going to do this not in my own strength, but in the Lord's strength. But that's not always the only, I think, godly response. So like, what do you think is a better response when like your emotional, your physical, your spiritual batteries are to zero, but your spouse is asking for you to show up in some way?
One of the things that I have experienced in our marriage that I have appreciated, and for me, it felt like a really healthy walking through that, is this comes back to sort of that honest, open communication of, and I'll kind of create a specific example just to play it out. I get home on a Friday, say it's been a really hard week, and I'm coming home like in a deficit. I'm
Yeah.
not just burned out, like I got nothing.
Crawling to the
And
finish line here. Yeah.
yeah. And let's say Friday, because of the rhythm of the week, this feels like this is probably going to be an intimate night. Like just sort of there's that potential expectation, all these things, but everything's just sort of unsaid, but
Yeah.
felt is rather than coming in there either guarded or very standoffish, like maybe if I put enough prickles on, he'll get the point. And like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to do this very,
I'm just thinking about like certain set of pajamas get put on and it's like, all right, well,
yeah. But honestly, like, I'm just going to do as many unspoken communications that like this night is not going to be as fun as you wish it was. And instead, coming home and choosing to be honest and vulnerable and be like, listen, I'm feeling exhausted. I don't feel like I have a lot. What would be wonderful is if we can make a plan for tomorrow. And honestly, my plan for tonight being I'm going to go to bed early. I'm like, set it up from the get go. Or even the honesty of like, if this is really important to you tonight, I can rally, but I'm asking for grace in this night. And then letting that, and this has happened before. And I feel like when I've done that well, you've responded in grace, like, I completely understand. And we've had a really nice Friday evening together that's very restful. I felt like that's been a much more healthy approach to it.
I think that hits on a lot of fronts because the tendency there would be to kind of like, I don't want to exert the energy to even broach the conversation.
Yeah.
And that can lead to even further like mismatched expectations. And a lot of one of the things I've been kind of recognizing and trying to give language to for you and I in this season, I wish I'd learned this earlier. It's probably elementary that everyone should know this in marriage, but like there are just moments when you're like, you're just out of sync. I think of your analogy, you talked a while ago about Awana and doing the 3-legged race. And it's like, there are the moments where it's like, we're a 3-legged race. Like we're like storming down. And then there's times when it's like, we are like tripping over each other because one person is going at 50 miles an hour. One person just doesn't even want to move. Yeah. And so when those mismatched expectations happen, like even just that naming and taming thing is to be like, okay, like what you're recognizing there is that we're probably out of sync. Yeah. Like there's a difference in expectation and not unreasonable. Like it's not, your expectation is not unreasonable. My expectation is not unreasonable, but we're, for whatever reason, we're just not walking in cadence. Yeah. And so when you can actually open that up, and I've even said that I've actually said that phrase to you a number of times, I guess maybe too often, over the last while. I just feel like right now we're just not in sync. Yeah. And that's a way of just kind of owning that gap that exists. And yeah, and I want to be careful. It's not about, let's use the example of Friday night intimacy, mismatch expectation. When you say Saturday, the bigger thing you're trying to say is, this is important to me. This is not unimportant, but I also need grace for this moment. Yeah. Because I think that even in marriage, we can feel like a sense of rejection. Like, oh, they're just not that into you. And if you can say like, no, that's not what's going on here. I actually want to give you my best, not my leftovers. Yeah. Then I think that's it. That for me communicates a lot.
That's a good word. Yeah. It takes that initial, because there's risk involved, because I think for me, I do struggle with, I don't want to deal with your disappointment. Yeah. And there is also the grace of allowing you to be disappointed. Yeah. And that's okay. Like it's okay that I'm not always going to fulfill every want or whim. And so that's part of that is also growing for as someone who's a people pleaser is being willing to let my honesty and expressing, this is where I'm at and allowing you to be disappointed and not feel angry about that. Like
Yeah.
I just let it be.
As long as that disappointment is not weaponized, and that's where it can get dangerous. And that's
Yeah.
the sort of blaming. Like that's another thing. It could happen on either side. You could be the person walking through the weariness and the exhaustion, and you blame the other person for not being understanding enough, or it could be the person that is trying to support the other, and yeah, you're almost like weaponizing the mismatch. I don't know. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
How do you see that show up?
I'm trying to think of a good, I think I'm trying to
Well,
provide.
I could enter in this one. The blaming thing. I think sometimes what this is a natural tendency is that there's an external reality. So for you right now, it's a health concern. It could be a stressor. It could be a family relationship. It could be kids. Could be whatever. And the projection, though, the spouse is in some ways an easy target because one, you're not perfect, and neither am I. So there's things to pick on. And second, you're kind of a safe target because I can just kind of put it on you, and then that takes the pressure off me, and I don't have to deal with this other thing. So it's that deflecting, kind of an element of this blaming.
Yeah, no, for sure. What do you think? I mean, I know there's obviously all these impacts, which there's probably a longer list than we've come up with, but just in terms of responses, because these are things that are going to come up for people, but what are,
Yeah. When you shared earlier about your coworker who you kind of had like a understanding about like, hey, you don't need to ask me every single minute how I'm doing. I was thinking about this first one, which is that there needs to be a balance between checking in
yep.
and giving each other space. I've seen that show up for us in a lot of different sort of exhaustion, tired, weariness. One of those has been when we've been kind of thinking, like last year, we spent a lot of time thinking about the future as we're getting ready to have our daughter graduate. I knew I would be in a vocational transition, and my pattern in any of those process, this is true if I'm buying a television or if I'm deciding the next 2 decades of my life, but I kind of like to run every scenario. You know
Yeah.
that about me.
Yeah.
And then typically I end up pretty close to where I started. But when I say run every scenario, I mean spreadsheets, budgets, plans, looking at actual houses, thinking about what gym we might join. And so like there's initially, like I can remember last year, there was like a pioneering, you have a pioneering spirit. So you're like, oh, that's cool. We'll go wherever God wants us. We'll go, which
Yeah.
you've never lost that. But there were points last year where you're like, I can't live like this all the time. Does that track?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you're an external processor and I can be like, I do like to process things, but it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up because I've thought this week at work. I'm actually somebody who, if I'm facing something like the health stuff, everything that was going on, what I actually want to do is I want to do the thing I need to do in front of me. And I don't want to just sit and talk about how I'm feeling about it. And it's not that I want to ignore it, but there's a side of it where I do better when given a little space for a bit. Like,
Yeah.
let me just sit with this. And it can be harder for me if I'm forced to just like, let's sit and look at this and talk about
Stare it.
all the
Just watch it. The paint
Yes.
dry.
And in my mind, this is like my wiring, right? I was like, we could stare at this and talk about it all day. It's not going to change anything about it. And I've got 15 things to do that have nothing to do with this that I could be doing in the meantime. And so I don't feel the productivity always of like, and again, I think there's space where I need to grow in that and learn to sit in things, but finding that balance of like, when do we sit, talk, feel those things? And when do we actually just give space?
Yeah. Well, and we had those conversations last year where it's like, and the answer is not, once you make a decision, let me know. That was not how we did. We just were like, hey, we can't live every night just scrolling Zillow and thinking about every single scenario. And so I think we got to a good spot, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Much better than we started.
We're still here in New Hampshire. So just like all these other things, I end up buying the first TV I look at, and we're in the same house. So
I want to say the other, in terms of responses in these seasons of tiredness and everything else, one of the things that I think is actually a real strong point for you, I'm giving you props on this one in a big way, is those sort of micro moments of connection and love. You are very, very good at one, you still write me notes, which I absolutely love, and it means so much. And so this was recently, you had to take a trip. We had, even while stuff was going on, you were going to be away. And for you to put in the thought and effort to go to my journal a couple of pages ahead of where I was and leave a note so that, 3 days later, I open up my journal. You haven't been home, you've been on a work trip, but there's this note. And it seems like a small thing, but those things added up. Like sometimes it's as simple as just a hug, like we're pausing to just hold each other for a moment or whatever it is. And recognizing the impact of those over, like they build up, they add up in a positive way when you've got all this stuff going on, and it can't all be extravagant things that you're doing to connect. Sometimes it's just these little tiny moments. So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the funny traditions that we have in our marriage is the Target care package.
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm going to say this one because I don't remember when you started it, but
yeah, it's such a, again, these are not like extravagant, like crazy things. It's just something that and we maybe do it once or twice a year, but it's kind of a funny one.
But it's been, if usually when I'm sick, you've been really good about, if I'm not feeling good, you go to Target.
You're not like big into cut flowers.
Yeah, no, I like odd things.
Yeah.
And you'll walk around Target. I think you described it to me once. I go and look for things that just make me think of you. And then it's not big. Again, this is not a major money purchase or whatever.
30 bucks or something like that.
Yeah, you come home with this bag full of just random, and it always just makes me laugh. And I love it. It often will have like my favorite snacks and a just random whatever. And I got
to stop buying the face masks because I feel like I buy those and I was like cleaning at our bathroom closet the other day and I found like 4 of them. I'm like, I guess that one's not really one of your jams.
I always think I want to do them and then I just never do. It's not even, I don't know, maybe I need to slow down and slap a face mask on once in a while. But then I'll age better like you are.
I guess I think like maybe that's a passive aggressive, like don't go buy your wife a bunch of makeup or something like that. Like,
yeah, be careful what you purchase. It does say something. So yeah, no, those are big ones, just little things like that. And they do mean a lot when you're in these hard spaces.
Yeah.
So yeah, be creative with that. I love it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think those moments are just again, to be loved is to be known and to be seen. And so like when you can find ways to kind of say to the other person, like, I've been thinking about you, even when you're not in front of me. And it's, that's just a really good, great thing. Sometimes it's a text message that you'll send me, we also are like a lot of couples, our Instagram DMs back and forth to each other are just funny comedians and memes and
absolutely.
Most of them are appropriate, at least the ones I send you, but can't speak so much for the ones you send me.
That's why I only send them to you, but they're hilarious. Come on.
Yeah. I actually think this is a great example to one of the things we were talking about is that just like we talked about good days, bad days not being exclusive, lament and joy are not mutually exclusive. Some of the richest, deepest moments in our marriage are moments where tears and laughter are like right mingled together.
Yes.
And where you can look fear in the eye, look exhaustion in the eye, look disappointment in the eye, and then have just really, really, great moments of just humor.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something that I enjoy a lot about our relationship is you are somebody that I am as comfortable crying with as laughing with. And I feel like we do both of those things a healthy amount. And when it's a more intense season, often those things can start to mix together. And we've had, even this week, moments where sitting out on the back deck, I will not go into detailing. I recognize that it's not all appropriate, but we were both talking about these really hard things that we're facing, but also cracking jokes around it and we're just dying laughing while we're also
Yeah.
being real about, man, this is really hard. Like some of this is frustrating or sad or whatever it is. But then also,
Yeah.
like, my abs hurt. I was laughing so hard, and it was a beautiful mixture.
Yeah, I think, in certain contexts, like inside jokes can be like, oh, you're being so exclusive, like you're excluding people. Well, marriage is exclusive. And so like, I think inside jokes are like one of the best things about marriage.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes like there are ones that some we've shared on the podcast, some we've shared with other friends, and there's ones that we will never share.
Like this next one. No, just kidding.
And that's all the time we have today. I just think that that's a really good, a good thing to be able to remember that, and lament is an important thing, and grieving loss. I lost a dear friend to cancer last year, and, the most beautiful funerals that you're at, and my friend Nate's funeral was no exception. There are real tears. He lost his life in his 30s to cancer. And at the same time, we sat around and cheered to Nate with Moxie.
Yeah,
And like we told so many
shots.
stories. And I mean, that is the life of faith is, we do not mourn without hope, but we do not have hope without mourning on this side of eternity. And so those two things mingled together, I think are a good thing to experience. And so there's going to be things that are put to death. There's obviously the loss of loved ones, but there's also the loss of expectation, or the loss of a job, or the loss of a hope, or the loss of health, or different things, and how we walk through that, I think, is both that lament and joy mingled together.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage, I know as we're kind of wrapping this up too, is to remember a big part of this journey is to be in it together. Like that we're on the same team, because again, one of the things I think the enemy can often use these challenges is to start to pit us against one another. We joked earlier about that competition, who's the most tired, who's the most frustrated,
Yeah.
who's the most stressed. And
Well, you had to deal with that much. I had to deal with this.
yeah. And instead of having that sort of competitive suffering
Yeah.
mentality, is what does it look like in our marriages in these weary seasons to come together, to be together in this, to just recognize each other's, like, yes, I'm going through health stuff, but it also impacts you. Like, it's not just to me, all of these things, and vice versa. When you go through hard things, it's going to impact. And how do we stay together in that and love one another through it and show grace in it? And I just think there's great opportunity, and the images that I will carry with me that to me are like a picture of what I want in our marriage are images like the other night of just sitting outside with you and sitting in a hard thing and laughing and crying and whatever, just all of the things. That's to me is the goal in this is,
Yeah.
High School Musical. We're all in this together.
Well, I think about it a few weeks ago, we had the privilege of sitting down with 3 hours with somebody who's meant a lot to both of us, but especially to me, my youth pastor, mentor, best man at my wedding, longtime friend, Peter Vitello, his wife, Tracy, and they're walking through a really difficult cancer diagnosis and prognosis going. That 3-hour conversation is something like, it was hard. We shared very vulnerably things about our lives that they didn't know. They were very candid with us. And we just got to, it was kind of holy ground, a really beautiful thing. And one thing I always remember that Peter said, he said that, I remember hearing this when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, but Peter always said that fruit grows in the valleys. The mountaintops typically are not lush with life. And we sometimes want to live that mountaintop marriage life. And it is in those valleys. It is in the weariness. And a lot of this is unspectacular, very mundane, ordinary suffering. That's where God produces his best fruit. And I wish it was a different way.
Yeah.
All the time. I wish we didn't live in a broken world. I wish that I didn't have all my sinfulness that you get to experience. And but that is the gift of Christian marriage, is walking in that together. So yeah, thanks for being there with me. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for sticking with me through it.
For sure.
So you guys stick with me through all these tests and everything when I get grumpy, hangry?
We'll see how they go. Just kidding. It'd be the worst. Like,
Take it one day at a time.
take it one day. We'll just,
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I got my limits. We'll see if you hit it.
I'm here. I'm ride or die. Dude, so
Love it.
yeah.
Well, thank you again to our listeners for taking time to hang out with us on this. For them, it'll be a Monday or whatever day you listen. And thanks for making it not just us alone in this room. Though it's kind of fun. I wouldn't even be sad about it. So
There have been episodes that we've tried that and nobody has ever heard them because I didn't hit the right button with my foot.
hadn't worked on that.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If this is a gift to you, share with others. And always give us feedback on how we can best serve you. We really enjoy the privilege of getting to do this.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.